Well, hey there team, welcome back to the channel. Welcome to my overview of Dark and Darker. So for those not across it, I do overviews often on this channel, pretty much daily. It's where I look at the first 2 hours of a game, because it's a Steam refund window, to figure out if you can make up your mind about whether you want to keep it or not. There are exceptions to the rule. We've had a string of them recently in that free-to-play games. This is a free-to-play game. Well, sort of free-to-play. It's free-to-play on the Steam storefront, but there's a bit more to it when you look under the hood. But still, an exception nonetheless. I look at it for the nominal amount of time to pass judgment. In this particular case, because it's a multiplayer game, I jumped into a session with some mates that were playing it. I've actually put just under 4 hours into it, all said. So a little bit longer than usual. And then on top of that again, this has a huge troubled development history, which I'm not necessarily going to go into too deeply, but I played a bunch of it in the previous versions that were on Steam before it was kind of delisted. So suffice to say, I've put a few hours in, probably more than I would for a normal overview. Also, I did actually drop money on the in-game store to unlock the full version, but I guess we'll circle back around to that. All said, I'm just trying to be as transparent as I can about the game. So at the top, it's great. I really like it. It's a lot of fun. It comes with a lot of baked-in problems that this genre is still suffering from, which is to say the kind of extraction looter shooter. The gimmick here is obviously it's Dungeons and Dragons theme, and it works quite well. But to make it work, it's a lot more claustrophobic and up close, compact even. So if the thing that you hate the most about Tarkov is coming up against level 10,000 sweaty dudes with super armor and the best ammo and all that just absolutely delete you, I don't know if you're really going to like this, because that issue, whether it's real or imagined, is kind of exacerbated here, which makes sense, you know. Smaller play space, you're trying to, sword fight, that sort of thing. You're not sniping each other from a kilometer away. In my time with it, as much as I enjoy a lot of the game, and I won't deny, I think the thrill of running into another party of people and having to fight is cool. It's interesting on paper, but just the three of us, very low level kind of idiots, with most of our playtime no one having unlocked the main account or whatever you would call it, which pay gates a lot of stuff, including having different characters. Every time that we ran into a party of other people, we would absolutely just get fisted. And it wasn't necessarily a skill issue. That's obviously going to be a part of it, but you could actually see them setting up wombo combos and trying to lure us into corridors, or like they had on contact meta things figured out with high-end loot and characters and all that sort of stuff. I'm not necessarily trying to cope, because it didn't actually worry me a huge amount, but it is more important that I verbalize this for you guys, that unless you decide to make this game your full-time job, when you run into other players, there's a good chance that they are that guy. So you're fighting a bit of an uphill battle. However, that didn't deter me, and I'm looking forward to playing some more. Mechanically, like maybe you've never seen this before, again, it has a lot in common with its previous version and, Tarkov-like games, Grey Zone, all that sort of stuff. They've gotten rid of the shrinking circle, but it's still not really, like, it's almost aesthetic. Mechanically, it's still there. You're going to run out of time in the dungeon and there's going to be cave-in collapses. There's a doom timer still. It's just not so overtly and gamily visualized as a circle. It's less that they change the mechanic and they more just change the way it appears to you. You make a party of 3 guys, you go into these dungeons, you basically run around killing skeletons and all sorts of stuff, opening treasure chests, taking out loot. It's novel. It's cool. It does some interesting stuff that's kind of cool to see come to life that you maybe thought of in like a Dungeons and Dragons setting. Examples being like if you're a spellcaster, you have memory slots, and spells are quite powerful, but they're very easily exhausted, right? Which is a Dungeons and Dragons holdover. And then you would rest to recover these slots. So you can basically just sit down on the ground. You can set up a campfire. This will heal the 2 types of damage you take, which you see in a lot of games. You've got the more healable chip damage or whatever, but you've also got permanent cap damage as well. So you can heal both of them with the fairly expensive campfire. Makes you vulnerable, but it's cool. It's a little moment of respite. Mages get back their spells, that sort of thing. So it very successfully channels that kind of Dungeons and Dragons vibe. And I feel there will be a huge overlap to people that see that and want that, but also being aggressively deterred from PvP. I feel like the dude that wants to, scratch away at pen and paper, hidden away in a Discord with his other nerds, which is fine, I'm a nerd too, whatever. I reckon that group probably are on the other end of the scale from the ones that want to, COD lobby up and Tarkov and smash each other's heads in PvP. So if anything, the fact that this does that so well, the dungeons are really cool, the different enemies, there's different kind of elites that will give you more trouble too. So like the lethality is there. It's not just against other players. But if anything, this opens the door to surely something being in development doing this, but more of a PvE bent. Think campaign, maybe narrative story, but party-based dungeon crawler. I'm not sure. But to me, that seems like one of the really obvious things that could spin out of here. Again, I'm judging the game for what it is, not for what it should be or what I want it to be, but I can't help but make that observation that there would be an audience that would be attracted to this and are probably a little bit put off by the PvP nature. And then when I tell you that in reality, it's probably the most egregious version of the PvP side of the scale, having a finger on it, of most of these examples, that's going to push those people even further away. I would, if you're curious, check out Greyzone, actually. Greyzone does the PvE thing really well, albeit it's modern military, but I got a lot of value out of that from a more cooperative with the boys experience. I'll mention that the game says it's free to play, but it's more that you're on a free account and they paygate a lot of stuff, and it kind of reminds me of like Elder Scrolls Online, which if you've ever played that, the free account seems quite reasonable, but they paygate probably one of the most important, egregious things, which I reckon 90% of people that actually pay for Elder Scrolls Online subscription or whatever, or higher version, or whatever you want to call it, do it for the crafting bag, I think. It's been a while since I played it, but essentially your ability to craft and pick up certain items is almost non-existent in the base version, and then if you pay the premium currency, you can do that. So 90% of what's included in the paid version is not that interesting to 90% of players, but the other 10%, the crafting pouch, is supremely important. I use it as my touchstone because this gives you access to like trading markets and all that. It's pretty much like a pay-gated auction house that you can't access unless you have the special account. And I'm pretty sure the currency conversion, it was like $50 Australian. I got it on a whim because I was curious, but more so, it's how you get other character slots. You're only allowed to ever have one character, and the only way to get a different character is to perma-delete them, so what progress you do make with them, it goes. And their stash is locked as well. Now, the sort of less cynical part of me says this might be in order to stop bot spamming and things like that in their auction house, sure, but I also think $50 just to honestly try out different character classes without deleting all of your progress so far is a little bit scandalous. I mean, it's their model, I might be wrong, that's fine, but I was playing as the bard and I was enjoying playing little ditties and belt and war drums while we fought skeletons. That was cool, but I wanted to see what the barbarian was and all that sort of stuff, and the only real way to do that, like I said, was either delete or money up. So I kind of find that to be a bit egregious, and if I'm being perfectly honest, I kind of regret dropping the coin. It's not like I've been playing this game every night since or anything like that. So anyway, look, that's my kind of cursory overview of Dark and Darker. It is early access, it's still early days, who knows where they go with it. I do wonder what sort of popularity and player base it has and it maintains. I haven't really looked at any of the stats or anything like that, because this thing, when it came out, this was the thing. This was the FOMO. And then it releasing on Steam just like the other week, it seemed incredibly quiet. I think a lot of people might have missed it. So for my part, be aware, it's there, it's free to play, and for the most part, you can play most of the game, perfectly fine. And if I suppose you jump around from character to character, deleting until you find the one that you like, and then you really settle into it, well, that's probably a sensible way to circumvent what is a pretty egregious full game price version. Yeah. It's a lot of fun, it is, but I really do wonder what that conversion rate is from free to paid. Anyway team, check it out yourself, might just leave it there for the time being, I'll catch you guys on the next one.